All right, what's going on? So today we are going to be walking through the ChatGPT system for writing a 50,000 word science fiction novel. First things first, if you're not a writer, this is a powerful tool you can use if you ever wanted to create stories, or if you already had an idea but writing is not your thing. You can use this system to create your first novel. Or if you're a seasoned writer, you can use this to develop more ideas, to develop your plots if you already have an idea, flesh out your characters, build worlds. And for writers who don't like outlining, but they know that they actually need outlining to get their books done, you can have ChatGPT write your outlines for you. That way you can just focus on writing. So yeah, let's get into it. First, we're going to start with ideas, run through plot, then character development, world building. Then we'll have ChatGPT do an outline for us, expand our chapters. Then we'll do some chapter revision, which is pretty simple with some prompts. It can also do proofreading. It says it can't, but I tried some prompts to get it to proofread and do some editing, and it actually did it. If you don't want to rely on it, you don't have to. You can use Fiverr, find somebody who can edit your books for you. Then we'll have it generate some title ideas for us, and we'll choose from that. And then formatting will have to be manual. Unfortunately, ChatGPT can't do formatting for you. So I have some links in there for you to use, so you can find the best solution to format your novel. And then also we'll talk about creating a book cover. You see this cover right here? Yeah, that's beastie, isn't it? Yeah, I used Midjourney and Dolly 2 to create that. Mainly Midjourney, and for Dolly 2, I just used it to put it in the format of a book cover. So I'll show you how to do that. It's pretty simple. And then you'll publish if you want to publish. Also, if you have any questions going through this, I'm here to help. So you can DM me on Twitter. Just make sure you follow me so I can respond and see your message at Son of Zell. And I'll try to help you as best as I can with any questions you have. So let's get started. All right, for the idea, first you want to know what kind of science fiction genre you want to produce. I have a list here for you of science fiction subgenres. You can go through these, pick ones that spark your interest. You have adventure, alien invasion, you got colonization, crime and mystery, cyberpunk, dystopia. There's so much you can choose from for your subgenre of science fiction. Once you have that, write them down here because we'll be putting them into ChatGPT. You want to put, like I have here, space exploration, bounty hunter, crime and mystery, drugs, espionage, cyberpunk, and adventure. So the prompts you're going to use to generate ideas off these genres is generate a list of story ideas for a science fiction novel based on subgenre, and subgenre. Depending on what genres you chose as your subgenre for science fiction, you'll paste it in there, and then you'll drag this over to ChatGPT. And then paste it in here. So let's choose colonization, adventure, alien invasion, and then let's add some. Let's see. What do we have in here? Let's do military. Okay, and then we'll enter, see what it produces, and it'll give you a list of ideas for your science fiction novel. It's pretty cool. It's dope. All right, while that's doing that, we can move on, see what else is in here. So once you decide from that list it produced, you can go ahead and add details to that idea if it didn't already have any, or if you didn't like certain parts of the idea, you can change it in here by copying and pasting it. What year does it take place? What does the civilization look like? What is the technology in the civilization? Or how does the main character fit into the world? You can add these details to the idea and get a unique output from ChatGPT. So one that I was working on earlier initially was two brothers who are bounty hunters who start in a mega city somewhere in New York, and they're looking for a criminal, and it takes them to a mega city on Titan where there's an underground crime trafficking syndicate that they have to take down. So these are the ideas that ChatGPT just produced for us. You have a military squad is sent to a newly colonized planet to deal with a rebellion, but soon realize the rebellion is a cover for alien invasion. After a successful alien invasion, a small group of humans must band together to fight against the invader to reclaim Earth. That's pretty bland. But if you like it, you can come back here and just add these little details, these questions, answer these questions, and then add it to the prompt and place the prompt back into ChatGPT. So right here, you'll see 3 prompts that I have already for you. You don't have to stick to these. These are just guides, because what ChatGPT does, it takes your direction. If you can direct ChatGPT on what you want it to produce for you, you'll get something pretty unique if it's paired with specific details and ideas. So this first prompt: write a science fiction idea for a genre about details up here that you have. So about, let's say, a civilization that's under Earth, and they can only travel to the surface of the planet during winter seasons because of the sun being, or because Earth is now so close to the sun, or some reason like that. Add those details to the genres, and then you'll get a unique output from ChatGPT. So here's another prompt you can use to get some more details. You can put this prompt: list out characters that will move the story forward and their roles. We'll go more into characters and character development, but if you're still just trying to get an idea of how this story is going to take place and what elements are in the story, you can have it generate a list of characters for the idea that it produced. So let's say a military squad is sent to a newly colonized planet to deal with a rebellion, but soon realize the rebellion is a cover for an alien invasion. So we can copy this down here, and then we'll put this prompt to get some characters so we can get some more ideas. And you'll see it'll start producing characters and their roles for this story idea. And it will get more specific depending on if you add those details that we have in this prompt right here. So another prompt: generate a list of story ideas for a science fiction novel that is about time travel, space exploration, and alien invasion. So these are subgenres for science fiction, and then I can add, let's say, the story takes place on the moon Io, where a space station and mining station is located. The main character of the story is a miner who has a specific set of skills that will drive, that will thrust him into the story. Okay? So if I wanted to use this story idea, I'll go into ChatGPT, and you can see all these characters for this story idea that you can use to build on your idea before moving on to plot. So I'm going to just come up here, and then I'm going to start over, and we're going to paste that idea. So generate a list of story ideas for a science fiction novel that is about time travel, space exploration, and alien invasion. The story takes place on the moon Io, where a space station and mining station is located. The main character of the story is a miner who has a specific set of skills that will thrust him into the story. So we'll hit save. A miner on Io discovers a mysterious device that allows him to travel through time and uses it to try to prevent an alien invasion that threatens to destroy humanity. You got a team of miners on Io uncover a hidden alien base on the moon and must navigate treacherous obstacles and hostile alien forces to uncover its secrets and stop an impending invasion. So it's generating all these ideas based off a unique, let's say, idea based off subgenres that we got from this list. So once you have your idea, move on to plot, and then you can start plotting out your idea. All right, so now we are working on plot. How will you structure your story? So what is a plot? It is a sequence of events that make up a story. It is the way the story unfolds from beginning, middle, and end. There are various ways you could structure your plot novel. You have a 3-act structure, a 4-act structure, a 5-act structure, which is mainly used by screenwriters and playwrights. You have the hero's journey, and you also have Dan Harmon's story circle, which is one of my favorites. If you haven't heard of Dan Harmon, you probably heard of his show Rick and Morty. And I think the Solar Opposites, I really didn't get deep into that one, but pretty much everybody know what Rick and Morty is, and he developed the story circle that is based off the hero's journey. So choose any choose any structure you want. If you're new, it's best to start off just with a 3-act structure because it's pretty simple for you to understand and follow along as far as the beginning, middle, and end. You have the setup, the confrontation, and the resolution. The setup is the beginning. This act introduces the character and settings and establish the main conflict or problem the story will focus on. You have the confrontation, what is the middle. In this act, the conflict or problem becomes more complicated, and the stakes get higher. The main character may try different solutions or approaches to the problem, but they keep failing. This act often includes the climax of the story, which is the turning point where the main character faces the most difficult challenges. Then the resolution is the end. This is the final act. The story is brought to a close and all of the main conflicts and problems are resolved. The character may reflect on what they learned or experienced, and the story ends with a sense of closure. This one is pretty simple. You have 4-act structure if you want to go into that. We're going to keep it simple, like I said, 3-act structure. So to develop a plot, take the idea that you generated with ChatGPT, or the idea you already have if you're just using this system to plot out your idea, and combine it with this prompt below. So you have idea plus plotting structure, and that looks like develop a whatever structure you chose from your idea or whatever idea ChatGPT produced for you. And then you also have develop a 3-act plotting structure from the idea above. And I say the idea above because ChatGPT does an okay job at recalling previous output. So for the story that I was working on, let's click this. So here's the story idea, right? And then I have develop a 3-act plotting structure from this idea. And it'll read this and recall this idea I fed it, and then it'll produce my 3-act structure. If I chose 4-act structure, it'll produce a 4-act structure, and it's also familiar with the hero's journey and Dan Harmon's story circle. Surprisingly, I tried it last week and it produced a structure based off Dan Harmon's story structure, which was pretty cool. So this thing is pretty powerful. Some things it gets wrong, but as a writer, creator, creative director, you have to pay attention to what you're producing. And as long as you pay attention to what you're producing, you should have pretty good results. Don't be sloppy. Don't be lazy. Make sure you pay attention, especially to consistency and congruency with your story. All right, so once you have your 3-act structure or whatever structure you choose, move on to character development. Again, right here, this is the example we just saw in ChatGPT of the 3-act structure it produced for one of my stories. You can copy paste your output here and delete this if you want, or you can keep it if you want to just to reference. All right, let's move on to character development. All right, so character development. Some people love it, some people hate it. I really like character development, especially once I'm in the story. When I made my crime fiction series, the character development was probably the best part and the most fun. Some people don't like it. That's on them. Some people do. But yeah, so what is character development? Character development is the craft of giving a character a personality, some depth, and motivation that propels them throughout the story. Without your story, without this, your story has no meaning. Characters give the reader something to invest in when they're reading the story. So take the time and create meaningful characters with depth. ChatGPT is able to assist you with this. Just make sure you're paying attention to the backstory it produces, and when you're reading your chapters, just make sure that it's staying congruent and true to the character based on your character development. So yeah, to get unique aspects about your character, combine your ideas of the character with the prompts below. Here's an example. You have idea plus prompt. You have character information slash idea plus character is the protagonist of this novel. Write a backstory for character based off this information. Or you have character is the protagonist of this novel. Write a character arc for character that ties into the plot. So let's go back to ChatGPT, and we'll tell ChatGPT to develop a list of characters for this story idea. And it'll start producing your characters. And then just for this example, I'll take this prompt right here, character information. Actually, we'll take this one. We'll paste it in here. And then let's take General Thomas. Actually, no. Let's do Jack since he's the main character. We'll put Jack into here where the character is. Jack is the protagonist of the novel. Write a character arc for Jack that ties into the plot or story idea. And then it'll start developing a backstory or a character arc for Jack. And you can also come back over here and choose just this part of the prompt. Okay. And we'll put Jack is the protagonist of the novel. Write a backstory for Jack based off this information. And when I say based off this information, it's based off this character arc right here and what we know about the character so far and about the story. And then it'll start producing your backstory for the character. And if you don't like it, you can change it. So it says Jack grew up on a small town on Earth. We can change it to change the birthplace of Jack to a small city located on the moon of Titan, a cold city where the population consists of mostly minors. All right, so it'll keep everything the same besides the birthplace. So change the birthplace. Birthplace in the place Jack grew up on from Earth to a small city on Titan called, let's say, let's just say Yamaha. Okay. Change the birthplace in the place Jack grew up from Earth to a small town located on the move of Titan called Yamaha. Hit enter. All right, and it'll start producing a backstory based off that information. If you don't like this input and you like something from up here, combine the ideas in the new prompt, directing ChatGPT on what to do. Get creative, think outside the box, and you'll get the results that you want, and you'll be surprised about what it produces for you. All right, so if you look down here, if you need more characters, you can have this prompt generate supporting characters, or generate a list of supporting characters throughout the story arc that ChatGPT produced for us. Okay? All right, and then here's an output that ChatGPT produced for me earlier for a novel that I was working on. You have Jace's brother, who was a hacker and a detective. You got a powerful client who hires Jace and his brother. You have a local contact on Titan who helps them find a criminal that they're looking for. You have a rival bounty hunter. You have a love interest of Jace. You have a drug lord who is the main target of the brother. You have the true mastermind behind the conspiracy of the story. And you have a mentor of Jace who helped Jace as he was becoming a bounty hunter. Okay? So prompts for character development. You got, you can duplicate these prompts for, let's say, instead of protagonist, you can put old mentor. You could put drug lord, whatever his name is, or the rival bounty hunter, whatever his name is, and then plug it down here and use these prompts to develop character development for those characters. Okay? So what characters are needed to move the story forward? That's a prompt to generate more characters. Then you have write a backstory, which we already did for protagonists. And this is the output it gave me when I put write a backstory for Jace. And this is what it produced. Jace is a skilled bounty hunter and a seasoned veteran of the profession who grew up in a New York megacity where he witnessed the harsh realities of life in the sprawling metropolis. Okay. You got more prompts. What city? Okay. What city does a protagonist grow up in? What led the protagonist to where he is now? And write a character arc for a protagonist, which we already went over above. And it'll produce that character arc for you. All right. Same for antagonists. You can put what antagonist are needed to move the story forward. All right. Write a backstory for antagonists. What city did the antagonist grow up in? What led the protagonists to where they are now? Write a story arc for the antagonist. Okay? And if you need character names, and you don't feel like just thinking about a whole bunch of names for characters, ChatGPT can do that as well. So here are some prompts to generate names for these characters. Generate the name for protagonist. Generate the name for antagonist. Generate the name for the love interest. Generate names for supporting characters. You can also put generate names for weapons, generate names for cities. The list goes on what you can generate, and we'll talk about cities, weapons, and locations in world building. Okay? So this is what it produced for the story that I was working on. Based on generate a list of characters for this story. You have a client, Alexander Prince. You got the local contact on Titan, Nova. The rival bounty hunter, Marcus. You got Jace, his love interest, Ava. You got the drug lord, Dante. You got the true criminal mastermind, Victor. And you have the old mentor, who we'll call Hunter. And then you have Jace's brother, which is Cole. Okay? So once you have all of this ready to go, your characters, your character arcs, your protagonist, his character arc, you got your supporting characters. If you want them to have a character arc as well, you can have ChatGPT produce that. And just copy and paste this right here to create new sections for this character. So we'll call it Cole. All right. And then we'll copy and paste these prompts in the output down in here. And then we'll have the characters we need to move on to world building. All right. Let's move on to world building. World building, again, some people like it, some people hate it. If you're developing a fantasy or science fiction novel, world building is very important. I believe world building is important in any story because it adds more depth. But you have your setting and your location. Location is the place. Setting is the collection of places. You have technology. What does the technology look like or exist in your story? You have power system. What power systems exist in your story? You have weaponry. What weapons exist in your story? And you have vehicle and transportation. How do the people in your story get from A to B? So for location, you have prompts like this. The story will take place in location plus setting. Write a short description about this environment. If you needed to generate locations, you can have this prompt right here. Write a few ideas where the story can take place based on the plot and story idea. Or you can have create the setting for the story. Or you can have create the location the story will take place in, and it'll generate your setting and location for you. And then you can come back up to this prompt right here. This story will take place in whatever location ChatGPT generated for you, plus the settings of whatever ChatGPT produced for you. Write a short description about these environments that ties into the plot, okay? And it'll give you an output. You can paste the outputs down here. That way you can keep track of your story. Same thing with technology, power systems, and weaponry. You have this prompt. Write a few ideas about the technology in the story that will help the characters move through the plot. For a story that I was working on, I had the technology needed in the story will be communication systems. And this was based off an idea that I have for the story. The technology needed in the story will be communication systems, systems that will allow the civilization to analyze planets, asteroids, and threats beyond the solar system. I have space armor, mechanical spacesuits, defense systems. And then the prompt is develop a few ideas develop a few ideas for some technology based off this information. So let's type this in to ChatGPT and see what it produces. This don't really matter. So based off the information I have up here, it's probably going to tie in the technology that I listed here into the story based off time travel. What else we had? We had time travel, space exploration, and alien invasion. So it's going to tie the technology into the idea and the plot. Okay? You got a quantum communicator, an astro scanner, space armor, and it describes it for you. You got an AI navigator, quantum teleportation, and then the list will go on. If you don't like something, you can regenerate it, or you can take one of these systems, right? AI navigator, describe this technology in more detail. Okay? And you can get more in depth into this technology so you have a more rich story. And sometimes ChatGPT takes its time, but it'll get there. Okay? So now it's going deeper into this technology that we can use to create a better story. Okay? Again, make sure it makes sense. Read over it. Make sure it's logical. I mean, it's science fiction, but you still want to make sure it makes some kind of sense, you know? That way the reader doesn't get lost. All right, you got same for power systems. You can tell it to develop a power system for your story based on what kind of story you write. Develop a power system based on your story idea or based on this idea and this idea, okay? You have a weaponry. What weaponry exists in the story? Describe this futuristic weapons. Describe futuristic weapons that allow them to protect their civilization from threats, to explore the solar system and enemies that pose a threat. So the prompt is describe futuristic weapons that allows. That's the prompt. Or we can have another prompt to be generate a list of weapons that tie into the story idea, the plot, say, and the plot. Okay? And then paste your output here is going to generate a list of weapons that make sense to your story idea. All right, and then you have vehicles and transportation. Create some ideas for interplanetary space travel for civilization in the story, as well as space marines. Things like cruise ships, starships, and battleships. So this would be an idea. And this is the prompt. Create some ideas for, all right. Here's an idea, space interplanetary space travel for civilization. Okay. So you have prompt, right? You have prompt, idea, and idea. So let me put this right here for you. Quote, prompt, your prompt plus idea you can put generate a list of transportation generate a list of transportation vehicles plus idea. And the plus is just basically based on idea. Okay? And then paste your output right here. That way you can keep track. All right, so if you're not getting the results you want from ChatGPT, it isn't a ChatGPT problem. It's a creative problem. So click here and you'll be able to read through sci-fi descriptions of books that are already published. That way you can expand your creativity and get your juices flowing. You can also think about your favorite science fiction movies or books to draw ideas from. So if you click this link, it'll take you to books, right? And then we had Alien Invasion. So go to Alien Invasion and just click one of these books and read through the synopsis or the blurb and just get an idea what it's about. You can also click and you can start reading this first free chapter that they offer. Write down some ideas, whatever comes to mind, and go to another one and just start piecing together ideas. That way you get something truly unique from ChatGPT. And once you have that, we can move on to outline. Just so you can see, this is some world building that ChatGPT did for a story that I was working on about the two bounty hunters. Okay? All right, let's move on to outline. Outlining. I love outlining. I learned outlining in 2016 or 17 when I was working on my first science fiction novel. And then it came into use when I produced my first crime series. I took the master class from James Peterson to learn how he outlines. I really like how he outlines. Some people don't outline and some people don't like to outline. And if you are a person who doesn't like to outline, like a lot of romance writers and fantasy writers, some of them don't really like to outline, and I can understand it can be tedious and it can take away that creative spark about you. But outlining is very important to structure and telling your story efficiently without getting lost and without having to go back and rewrite your whole novel and then it delays the process of getting it to readers who want to read your book. That's the point of writing, I believe. Some people some people just want to write just to write, but I like the idea of writing to um, have people read your writing. Um, that's the purpose that I have for writing. I want people to actually read my books, and I want them to enjoy my books. And I can't do that if I'm delayed by having to rewrite a book because something didn't work or there was a plot hole. You understand? So, what is an outline? An outline is a basic skeleton of a story and how it will be told to the reader, depending on the structure you chose. Okay, um, the plot of your story will determine how ChatGPT outlines your novel, and it'll be different depending on if you chose 3-act structure, 4-act structure, or Dan Harmon's story circle. But it's all the same. You'll get um, almost the same result as far as it being able to guide you in the right way in telling a consistent story and minimizing plot holes and delaying publishing. All right. So there will be 3 phases for this system when using ChatGPT to outline. You have the basic outline consisting of a few sentences. You have expanded outline that adds more depth to the basic outline. You have the fleshed out outline, and this adds more detail to the outline. And the fleshed out outline is basically the chapters being ready to just need dialogue and some action added to it. All right. So once you get to the fleshed out outline, you're pretty much almost done writing your novel. You just need to add some more details and add some dialogue and some narration, and you're all good. So basic outline prompt. This prompt is write a basic outline using the 3-act structure based on the plot, setting, location, character, protagonist, and antagonist. All right. So let's see. This is the output that I got from using this prompt for the bounty hunter story that I was working on. You can see it took my story idea, my plot, and it put it into an outline that I would be able to use to break down into chapters later on. And it's just a few sentences, like you see. The story opens up with an action scene that showcases the abilities and skills of Jace, a seasoned bounty hunter, and he captures an augmented criminal in the New York City. For Act 2, the confrontation, the bounty hunter arrives on Titan and finds himself in the world of neon lights and advancing technology, as well as a thriving criminal underworld. It ends with dramatic confrontation between the brothers and Dante, who was a rival bounty hunter that we used in character development when we had it list and expand, when we had it generate characters to move the story forward. For the resolution, the final act begins with the brothers returning to New York to confront the true mastermind behind the conspiracy, who is Victor. And then the story ends with the resolution of the conflict. The brothers and the allies have succeeded in stopping the spread of a drug and capturing the true villain, Victor. It also shows Jace having grown as a person and having come to terms with his past and is now on the path to a brighter future. So in ChatGPT, you can see this is what it produced, and I just copy and pasted it inside the document. That way I can keep track of the story, making sure is congruent with the plot and the story idea. Okay. And it's really that simple. If you don't like a part of this outline, you can tell ChatGPT to fix it or to rewrite it, and you'll just use the prompt rewrite or rewrite act to the confrontation, and it'll change it. Okay, if it's a specific line into the act, you can have ChatGPT change it. It could be tedious, but just write it. Just type it in and change it. All right, it's okay to use your fingers. So yeah, read through the outline and pay attention to consistency and continuity. So troubleshooting inconsistencies and continuity, or any issues you can have ChatGPT check for it. So let's see. Read through outline and tell me if there are any inconsistencies. Or read through outline and tell me if it follows the story idea and the plot. And if it doesn't, you can have the prompt change or fix the outline so that it follows and remains consistent with the plot and the story idea. And it'll rewrite it for you. Okay? If everything checks out and matches your plot, setting, location, characters, protagonist, antagonist, move on to expanded outline. For this, the prompt will be expand this basic outline using the 3-act structure or whatever structure you chose based on the plot, setting, location, characters, protagonists, antagonists, technology, weapons, and world building. All right? And it'll produce a more expanded outline with more detail. Okay? Read through it. Make sure it's consistent with your world building and your character development. Also, your setting and location. If there's any issues, you can either type in here to fix it, and then read through it, and if it's all good, move on to fleshed out outline. So troubleshooting inconsistencies, again, is going to be the same. Same as this. We'll just copy and paste it down. All right. All right, if it's matching up, move on to fleshed out outline prompt. This prompt will be flesh out the expanded outline using the 3-act structure based on the plot setting, location, characters, character arcs, protagonists, antagonists, technology, weapons, and world building. All right, fleshed out. This is what it gave me for the fleshed out outline. See, more details. And really, I would say that I can expand this even more. But really, I want to save that for chapter expansion, because basically these are chapters, but I'm going to divide them into individual ones. So this might end up being 2 chapters, or this might be 1 chapter, and this is 2 chapters right here. Okay. So yeah, pay attention again. Inconsistencies, make sure it's congruent with your world building and your character development. All right. If everything checks out, you can move on to chapter expansion. Okay, so chapter expansion. Let's see. Chapter expansion is the process of taking your highly detailed outline and adding narrative and dialogue to it. If you have a favorite author or a writer, you can draw inspiration from them by telling ChatGPT to use those writers as inspiration. And basically, you'll just put, okay, example, before writing or expanding chapters, use, let's say, I know James Patterson doesn't write science fiction, but you can put the author, James Patterson, as James Patterson's writing style as inspiration. All right, so this will be the author. I wouldn't suggest using them as, inspiration, especially if you already have your own writing style. But if you don't and you're just getting started, combine a few authors that you are familiar with or in your genre and see if ChatGPT is familiar with it. And if they are, combine them, and you can use those as a prompt for this. Okay? So 2 things we need before directing ChatGPT to expand our chapters. You need a narrative style, and narrative is the way of presenting connected events in order to tell a good story. There are 4 different narrative styles. You have linear, non-linear, quest narrative, and viewpoint narrative, which is the POV, point of view. You can read more by clicking this link, and it'll go deeper into these narrative styles, okay? But for now, we're going to be using the viewpoint narrative because this is the most common for fiction and science fiction. And specifically, there's first person and there's third person. There's also a second person that really isn't used, but you have first person narration and you have third person narration. All right. So choose a narrative style between first person and third person. It's personally up to you. Since I have multiple characters for the story, I decided to use third person omniscient narration. All right. And then 2, the character's point of view you want ChatGPT to write in. You can choose 1, 2, 3, however you want to choose is your book. Choose however many characters you want to write. I know if you write too many, it can get confusing to the reader to keep up. But around 2 or 3 is a pretty good number for characters to be switching in between, especially if it's like you have a main character, a supporting character, and then an antagonist. So for my story, I have a bounty hunter, the bounty hunter's brother, who was a former detective, and I have an antagonist. So I could switch between those 3 when telling the story. All right. So here's the prompt to break down your outline into chapters. The prompt is split this outline into number of chapters. So if you want 30 chapters, 40 chapters, you would put that in the spot for a number of chapters. Now, if ChatGPT stops writing chapters, you'll want to use this prompt, okay? You want to use the prompt continue chapters or continue writing or splitting outline into chapters, because it stopped on me, especially if you have a lot of chapters. Like, let's say you want to write 70,000 words and you want each chapter to be 1,000. You want to have 75 different chapters, and it might stop at 35, and you'll want it to continue on. And there might be some issues where it stops, like it makes the last chapter it wrote the last chapter. So what you can do is you can tell ChatGPT to expand, to add additional chapters to flesh out the story. Okay. So yeah, right here, if ChatGPT doesn't write the correct amount of chapters, split this act outline into whatever amount of chapters you want. That can be expanded into however many words you want the chapters to be. Plus, make sure the outline is split into the total amount of chapters you want, just so you make sure it's writing all the chapters you need to hit whatever number you want, word count you want your novel to be. All right, and then you'll paste the output right here. You can see my output. I wanted first I was going to write 70,000 words for this novel, but I changed it to be 50,000. But for 70,000 words in each chapter being 2,000, it gave me 35 chapters that I needed to split it into. So when I did the prompt, I told the prompt to split the outline into 35 chapters. That way I can have 2,000 words per chapter. And that's all you have to do to get the amount of chapters you need for your novel. And you can see it does a good job of titling the chapters out as well. If you don't like them, you can change them. It's your book, okay? It is your book. So here's some more prompts. And these are the prompts that you're going to use to expand these chapters, all right? So introduction, Jace captures the augmented criminal in New York City, establishing the character in the advanced technology in the world, all right? So what I would do to expand that chapter, I will use this prompt, expand chapters 1 through 2 with more detail. Now, I would focus just on one. I tried expanding multiple chapters at once, and what I've noticed is ChatGPT will start combining chapter 1 with chapter 2 instead of fleshing chapter 1 out as much as it can and getting as much detail and getting more in depth with that chapter before moving on to the second chapter. So ChatGPT, if you choose more than one chapter, it kind of gets lazy and wants to move on to the next chapter as soon as possible. So I would try to keep it just to one, unless you're going to go over it again and tell it to expand the chapter again with more detail, which you can. There's no problem with that. It's all up to you on how you want to expand your chapters. Okay? So if you want to add dialogue to your chapter, here's the prompt you would use. Expand chapter 1 with details and include dialogue. All right? Here's another prompt, which I forgot to put. Expand chapter 1 using third person narration and include dialogue. And then you can also have it getting to more detail by, once it produces the output, you can go through it again, copy and paste it, and break down the chapter and add in, describe this, describe that, add dialogue here, and add dialogue there. Okay, so once you expanded your chapter with narration, dialogue, and more detail, continue this process with each chapter until each chapter is expanded or has the detail and a dialogue that you want. Like I said, try to keep the expansion to 1 to 2 chapters. Really, just one chapter is best. That way, you get the best results, and ChatGPT can focus on that one chapter at a time. So this is the expanded chapter that I got from ChatGPT based off my bounty hunter idea. And I'll leave this in the document. That way you can read it and look over what it produced for me. And this is the extended chapter output that I got from ChatGPT. So this is what I fed ChatGPT in order to expand the outline. Okay. All right. So if you continue on down, you'll see a prompt for writing chapters using the narrative style that you chose and the point of character you want the story to be told from. So here's an example of how this prompt will look like. Write chapter 1, write chapter 1, introduction, using third person, omniscient narrative from the viewpoint of Jace. Okay? If you want certain chapters to be from a different character's perspective, you can use the following prompts to separate the chapters. So prompt for, and this would be if you had ChatGPT write 1 to 3 chapters at a time. You'll let it write the chapter, and then you'll go back in and you'll have this prompt: rewrite chapters, let's say 1, 3, and 4, using whatever narrative style you chose from the point of view of whatever character you want it to be told from. And then you can have chapters 2, 5, and 7 using whatever narrative style that you want from the point of view of the other character. All right? And it doesn't even have to be rewrite. You can just put write chapters 1, 3, and 4, 6, 9, and 10 using narrative style from the viewpoint of character or protagonist. And then you can have the other chapters written from the perspective of your antagonist using whatever narrative style you want. But it's best to stick to one narrative style throughout the book, because you would confuse your readers. Okay? So remember to watch for consistency and continuity with your outline and your chapter expansion. If you are unsure, you can ask ChatGPT, does this chapter you wrote remain consistent and congruent with the plot and fleshed out outline? You can also ask, are these chapters consistent and congruent with the plot and fleshed out outline? If not, ChatGPT will let you know, and you can correct these inconsistencies by using the prompt: correct inconsistencies, deviations from the plot and the fleshed out outline. All right. Again, if you need any support, or if you have any questions, you can DM me on Twitter at Son of Zell. My Twitter should pop up once you click this link, and just make sure you're following me. That way I can see your messages, and I can guide you through whatever issues you're having. Now it's time to move on to chapter revision. All right, chapter revision is it's pretty simple, straightforward. Sometimes you'll get outputs of your chapter that you don't like. Making revisions, it only takes a few prompts to change whatever you want to change, and you really don't need to use ChatGPT to make these revisions. You can do it yourself and then plug your revisions back inside ChatGPT instead of relying on it to generate something you'll be okay with. You can just go ahead and change what you want it to be, because you have so much information about the story. You know where it wants to go. You can plug it in and then continue on to proofreading and editing. So use the prompts below to make variations to your desired chapters if you want to use ChatGPT. So change and then paste the section of the chapter or the entire chapter here, and then write about what you want. Write what you want to be revised about the chapter. Okay? So whatever you don't like about the chapter, place it right here in this area. And then here, change the section or the entire chapter into this area here, and then feed it to ChatGPT, and you'll get your revision. So you can copy and paste your chapters here, and then you can paste your revisions here, just to keep track of the changes you make. All right? Fairly simple. Once you're satisfied with your revisions, move on to proofreading. Okay, so proofreading and editing. ChatGPT is not perfect at providing accurate information, but it does a pretty good job and has a pretty good grasp on grammar. Here are some prompts you can use with ChatGPT to check for misspellings and punctuation issues, and issues with word flow, especially if you've already written a chapter without using ChatGPT, and you want to, double check and make sure that it doesn't have any grammatical errors, punctuation errors, capitalization, all that. Also, incorrect word choice and awkward phrasing. So it can check for that. This is the prompt: proofread and edit chapter 1, or whatever chapter you want it to proofread. You'll place it in those brackets, correcting grammar, punctuation, capitalization, verb tense, and as well as incorrect word choice and awkward phrasing. You can also use a prompt to check for you can also use this prompt to check for wordy sentences. You can use, are there any grammar issues? Are there any punctuation issues? Capitalization issues? Capitalization issues with verb tense? Any issues with verb tense? Or any issues with awkward phrasing? You can check individually to see if it'll find these problems. And this is really good, especially if you've already written a chapter outside of ChatGPT and you want to make sure it's good enough to publish. Of course, you might still want to hire a proofreader from like Fiverr or something to see if they can find any issues. But it does a pretty good job. I used it to check for, let's see, any errors in this chapter, and it didn't find any. It just, because it wrote it as best as it could, and I think it didn't have any issues. So it brought up like it brought up errors like there was a problem, but really it just, actually, this last sentence, there was a redundancy because it was stated earlier in the chapter. So yeah, it'll find stuff. But when I asked it if there were any more issues, it gave me some things that weren't a problem. So Marco is an augmented human, and it said it should be Marco is an augmented human, and it's just repeating the same thing. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You have to pay attention again. This is a tool to use to scale your creativity, and is not meant to replace your creativity. Okay? All right. So, yeah, pay attention. Make sure it makes sense. Make sure there's no incongruencies. If it's just repeating the same thing, ignore it. It means you're all good. But yes, if you have an extra chapter, if you have a chapter you've written outside of ChatGPT, it will produce and show you your errors, and it can correct it, because I've tried it with an audio drama. So, all right. So, yeah. If there are any issues, you can use this example prompt right here. Correct punctuation issues. Here's another prompt. After all the proofreading and editing is done, ask ChatGPT what grammar, punctuation, capitalization, verb tense, as well as incorrect word choices and awkward phrasing did it fix, and it'll list them. Here's another prompt. What grammar issues did you fix? And it'll list them. So there's also a software called Authors AI. Is a tool you can use to analyze your novel, and it'll critique your novel based off structure and story. They have a free version you can run your manuscript through, and this is just extra to make sure that your story is good and is ready to be published. There's a free version, there's a $1.99 version, and then there's a one payment version if you just want to avoid paying a monthly or annual membership. I used it on my crime novel, and I can say that it does a really good job of showing you how well your plot and your story is developed. So this is a good resource if you don't plan on hiring a developmental editor um, or a proofreader. You can use this AI tool to analyze your chapters and your overall story before you publish. So this is what it includes. So this is what it does. It analyzes pacing. It compares it with bestsellers. It analyzes the subject, the narrative arc, and the plot structure. It analyzes your story beats, if they are in the right place, the pacing. It finds cliches, repetitive phrases, um, explicit language or content. It analyzes the readability, your dialogue. It breaks down your narrative, um, and repeated uses of adverbs and adjectives, verb choice, if you're using the passive voice or not, potential misspellings, and punctuation data. So this is a really good tool if you don't plan on or you can't afford a proofreader or developmental editor at the moment. You can use this tool combined with ChatGPT. So once you've done that and you're satisfied, you can move on to title. Okay, so this was saved for last because the title, if you start with the title, it can block you from actually getting started writing and coming up with a story idea. When I first started my writing journey, I tried to think about the title first, and I spent, I don't know, days before I actually got into writing the story and developing the idea. So try to save titles for last. Um, um, ChatGPT can help you generate titles. Here are some prompts you can use to generate them. But remember, they are important. But if you want to publish and you're trying to build like a publishing company, titles, don't get caught up in them. Just come up with one, figure out one that's good, and move on. That way you don't delay publication. So here's some prompts. What is the overall theme of this novel? It'll give you themes of the novel. Generate 5 titles for this novel based on the overall theme. And then generate 5 titles for this novel based on the plot. All right, so let's go ahead and try this for the story that I was working on. Let's refresh this. And then, what is the overall theme of this novel? What is the overall theme of this story? Generate a title for this story. Alright, so it's generating the theme of this novel. You want to read it and make sure it's consistent based off your plot idea. And if it is, you'll ask it to generate titles based off the theme. So generate 5 titles for this novel based on the overall theme. Justice at any cost, the Hunter's Code, the price for the price for justice, the Titan's justice, the solar system's protectors. Those aren't really good, so let's try again. Okay. So I don't really like those, so let's try generate 5 titles for this novel based on the plot of the story. Chase on Titan, the brothers hunt for a drug lord. Neon Justice, a bounty hunter's tale. The Conspiracy of Saturn, a brother's journey. Augmented Criminal, the brothers hunt for the truth. Beyond the Ring, a brother's quest for justice. That's not too bad, and it's probably because we gave it more detail, which would be the plot of the story. So yeah, keep going through this until you find a title that fits the story and that you rock with. Conspiracy in the Stars. A solar system on the edge of some drugs. Rings of Deception. That's a good one, but it doesn't really convey the story. But I like it. Neon Justice. And we can add more detail to get more out of the title generation. We can put based on crime, drugs, the underground or the underworld. Let's see. Neon Justice, a tale of crime and drugs in a futuristic city. Nah, that's too vague. Augmented Outlaws. The drug lord's demise, a bounty hunter story. The cyberpunk chase. The Shadow Syndicate, a journey into the criminal underworld. I kind of like that one. Let me see. Rewrite this title. This title to include the subject of bounty hunters. Right, 5 more. Brothers in Arms, a bounty hunter's pursuit in the criminal underworld. The Price of Justice, a bounty hunter's mission in a criminal future. The Titan's Pursuit, a bounty hunter's race against the underworld. The Cyber Hunt, a bounty hunter's battle against a syndicate of criminals. Not too bad if we're just publishing. Yeah, that's not too bad, especially the Brothers in Arms and the Titan's Pursuit, since the story takes place majority on Titan, where there's an underworld of crime, criminals, augmented criminals, and all that. So yeah, once you have a title, move on to formatting. There's some tools in here for you. As of right now, ChatGPT cannot format your novel, so you will have to do it manually or pay someone to format it for you. Here's a link on how to format your book. Dave Chesson does a really good job of breaking it down for you. You can run through this and all the requirements you need and guidelines you need to format your book. You can also use Vellum, which is a paid software for Mac. You can also use Atticus, which is also created by Dave and the people over at Kindlepreneur. Okay. This one is also paid. You can also use Kindle Create, which is free. All right. Format your story, format your book for free. And then Fiverr. You can use Fiverr to find and hire formatters to format your book for Kindle KDP, whether it's your ebook version or your paperback or hardbook version. All right. So lastly, we got book cover, and this was really fun. I used Midjourney and DALL-E 2. If you don't have Midjourney, or don't want to use Midjourney or AI tools to generate your book cover art. I know some artists don't like it. They don't agree with AI generating art, but it does save you a lot of time and it saves you some money. Midjourney, I think it's $60 a month, and DALL-E 2 is it's free with credits, and then you have to buy credits. So what I did is I used Midjourney to create the main artwork, and then I used DALL-E 2 to extend the artwork vertically. That way it was in the format of a novel. All right. So the inspiration, you can Google science fiction to get some inspiration for some covers, and just write down the themes of the book covers you see. So, for example, let's go to science fiction book cover. Okay. And you can look through these and just take note of the main elements of the book. If you have aliens, look, you got an alien spaceship with an alien on the cover. You have a woman in space and a spacecraft on the front. You can note the colors. You got purple, some blue in there. This one, you have purple, blue. Looks like a spacecraft in the middle and a person standing in the middle. Note down these elements of the book. And then in Midjourney, you're able to generate images using prompts. And how I got my prompt was I Googled styles you can use to generate in Midjourney. Well, first I had an idea, a male bounty hunter. Some elements that he would need to have to convey the story are weapons and guns. And then I added explosion and fire by looking through other science fiction book covers. Then I had a location. I wanted it to be in a city. I wanted it to look epic. I wanted the city to be futuristic in that cyberpunk feel. And I put science fiction just to add in more elements. I noted some colors that I like. I had neon, green, yellow, purple, and blue. And then for styles, I have 3ds Max, which is a 3D rendering program and modeling program. I got Cinema 4D. I have a Star Wars style. a cyberpunk style, an action movie style as far as how posters will look, and dramatic lighting for the style. The quality, I had 8K, ultra realistic, photorealistic, ray tracing, Maya, Blender, and render. And Maya and Blender could also be in style, but it doesn't really matter because I combine everything together. So prompt looks like this all together, just combining everything all together. Okay. And then for the title, you can use Photoshop. I tried to use Midjourney for Photoshop. It just doesn't work. I don't think it understands font. All right. So what I did was I just took this prompt and I plugged it in to Midjourney to generate my cover. You see here, I tried to use it to make a title. Doesn't really understand. It doesn't really understand. But yeah, this is what I got. And then I took it to to DALL-E 2, and I expanded it because it was cropped. It was cropped like this. And DALL-E allowed me to extend it vertically, showing more of the legs, more of the gun on his arm, and more of the city, as you can see. And then I'm just going to use this as a cover. I might not even add, font and title on the front because I just like the way this looks so much. I believe adding font to it will take away from it because they can see the font on Amazon. The title on Amazon. So just to display the art, I just might leave the title and the author name off. But yeah, that is beastie. That is beastie. I would say 90% of this novel is created using, maybe 95% using ChatGPT and AI to produce it. And the rest of it is, creative ideas. Here's another cover I tried to generate for it. I don't know which one I'm going to use. Probably this one. I like it better. This one seems like it's more fantasy. So yeah, like you see, it's not perfect. This is a DALL-E trying to extend the photo vertically. The quality here is really not that good, but it does the job. And if you want to publish and build income from publishing, your readers aren't really going to nitpick about that. All right. So publishing. All right. Now it's time to publish and get paid for your creativity. The only way to do this is by publishing and building an audience for your novel. There are various platforms you can use for your novel. My personal favorite is Amazon KDP. You can watch a walkthrough video on how to publish on Amazon KDP. Coming here, signing in and all that. And it'll show you how to upload your title, add keywords. And then for your book blurb or your book description, you can have ChatGPT generate an engaging and captivating book cover or book blurb for your readers. You can also write an engaging synopsis of the novel. A personal suggestion, if you are planning to grow an audience with publishing, I would suggest giving everything away for free, to be honest with you, because it's the fastest way to grow your audience, your mailing list, by giving away your first book, maybe your second book and third book for free in exchange for the email. That way you can build a community and sell to them later. Okay? And then lastly, I had audiobooks in here. Can AI really be used to create audiobooks without paying for a voiceover artist? Yes. And if you know about publishing and getting your novel adapted to audiobooks, it costs a lot of money to have a voiceover artist adapt your book, because you pay hundreds of dollars per hour finished, and your book might be, let's say, 5 hours long. You might be paying, let's see, if they charge 150 per hour, 150 per hour, and it's like 4 hours, you're paying $600 to get your audiobook published. And if you're trying to produce a large quantity, that is going to add up pretty fast. So if you sign up for the Creative Mastery newsletter, just click this once you're inside of the document. Be on the lookout, because in the future I will be creating a guide on how to use ChatGPT to adapt your novel into an audiobook using AI. And you can also use this for nonfiction as well. So sign up for that newsletter to stay updated. And that is all for this walkthrough. Again, if you need help, or if you have any issues with this guide and you need me to clarify anything, feel free to DM me on Twitter, and I will try to help you as best as I can. So this is the ChatGPT system for writing a 50,000 word science fiction novel. I hope you got a lot of value from it. I had a lot of fun making this and working on it for my bounty hunter story. And once it's published, I'll be sharing it with you guys. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to see me publish it, and you'll be able to take a look at it. All right. Take care.